Hello, this is Peter from Franke de la Fuente law firm, and today I'm joined by Ms. Raquel Parrado, a colleague of ours, and we're today in our office in Estepona. And the topic of today is the KYC and anti-money laundering process. This is something that all property buyers will encounter, so let's break it down with Raquel, one of our specialists. So first of all, the definition itself, the KYC often referred to, what does it actually mean?
Well, it means know your client, know your customer, and it is basically in order to comply with the anti-money laundering regulations of Spain, where we must identify clients or entities in real estate transactions.
Right. So as the definition goes, know your customer. It means that we need to identify the customer.
Correct.
Our client.
Yes.
And also the funds, origin of the funds.
Correct.
Am I right?
Correct. So we do the verification of the clients and the origin of the funds when initiating a transaction.
So, and if you could define for us, please, the legal obligations for us as lawyers, because we are, of course, we have a certain obligation as lawyers in these processes.
Of course. So initially we must assess the clients, and the main identification step is with the passports. We will request from them their identification, either if it's a Spanish client, we request their ID, or foreigner, their NI number or passport. This is the basic initiation for the KYC process. And of course, depending on each case, we can take certain approaches.
Okay. So ID, copies of passports, etc.
Correct.
And secondly, what other kinds of documents do we usually require or inquire for from the clients besides the identification papers?
Well, the most main documents that are requested are tax returns, tax declarations, pay slips, and some sort of utility bill, either water, electricity, to verify their current address. This would be sufficient in an initial stage of identification of the client.
Right. And then in our assessment, we should point out also that it's on an individual basis.
Of course.
So the what we require for documents in terms of documents will differ from one client to the other, right?
Of course. It will be completely different depending on the situation of each client, their background, and also the KYC process is directed to all the parties involved. So if this is a marriage, for example, both parties will be assessed under the AML protocols. And of course, as you mentioned, everything is individual and is specifically designed for each client.
Right. And so in the real estate transaction, it could also be good to point out which other parties that take part in the transaction has a similar kind of responsibility. So we have it as lawyers.
Of course.
Banks are another one, of course, and developers that promote and sell new developments.
Yes, exactly.
Am I right?
You're correct. So promoters have a very exquisite AML compliance process. They will request this initial documentation that we have just mentioned. And of course, depending on the clients and the way they're buying, certain documentations can be added to this request. For example, if they're buying through an entity or a company, they can request the incorporation documents of the company, who is the official owner of the company, who has powers in the company, etc. The origin of the funds of said companies, dividends, etc. Just to have a good track of the origin of the funds and the ownership of said company.
Yeah. So I know one word that we usually use when we talk to clients about this is patience, especially when it comes to the KYC processes with developers. Some of them can take longer time than others.
Yes.
And in this moment, we recommend our clients to be a little bit patient, and we will guide them step by step.
Of course.
Because what we see actually on the market from different developers that they seem to have different policies and different requirements of what they need
Mm-hmm,
in
exactly.
similar cases, am I right?
Exactly, just like that. Some clients are a bit can enter a desperation phase where they don't know how the process can take so long. But of course, it all depends on each promoter, as you mentioned, and the documents they request. Even if all are compliant under the same law, some can be more exquisite than others, as I mentioned, and can be more delayed in time, or they want more specific information of the documentation, or to break it down even further. But of course, we engage with the client since moment one, and we are on their side for this. So they don't have to even think about it. We just make a few contacts with them, and we take care of the rest.
Right. I know that it's important for us to explain to clients because this is in the beginning of the process. So we are now entering into the KYC process.
Yes.
Please bear with us. It might be you might need to use your patience slightly here, but we will guide you and we'll help you.
Just like that.
And many times we have foreign documents, and they might be maybe they need to be translated and notarized and so on, and that can take time.
That can take time.
Right. Let's move on. When it comes to our obligations further, internal obligations, how do we make sure that we deal with the documentation and the information correctly, the personal information?
Okay, so we must have a safe database, which we do have, and there we just file all the documentation by case and specifically for the AML process. This documentation, we have to comply with the period of time that we need to have it kept safely by law. And of course, it will not be disclosed to any third parties that are not involved in the real estate transaction. In this case, it is mainly promoters. We will inform the clients of what they need specifically, and we will just provide this document. And in case they need to engage with a bank for a mortgage offer, for example, we will also disclose to them certain specific documents, but of course, always in a safe and very confidential manner.
Yeah, correct. Right. Final question then. I mean, many times the KYC process, it comes naturally in the beginning of the process. What do you advise when it comes to the gathering of documents and dealing with developers specifically? Because we work with a lot of clients, of course, that are buying new developments, and I know that we have a certain policy to gather, if we can, all the documentation and build a file and hand it over to the developers. And why is that recommendable in your opinion?
Well, it makes the process smoother. Instead of sending several emails with several documents, so the promoter doesn't miss any documentation, it makes it smoother to just send it in one file, gather everything together, and in one email explain the origin of the funds and the documentation to prove this. Of course, there's some specific cases in which the documents, for reason of delays of authorities in the country of origin, delay in certain documentation, you must provide what you have at the moment, but our recommendation always is to provide everything in one file with an explanation to make it smoother and have the approval as soon as possible.
Perfect. All right. Excellent. Thank you very much, Raquel, for breaking it down, and thank you for watching.
Thank you.